Who's covering tonight? I mean, are you going to be here?
Yep.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks for being here. This is the March 27th press release. We saw from the Department of Health statistics today on the webpage that we've got a few more cases. That'll continue to happen. We've got a couple of confirmed cases in Pennington County, a couple in Lawrence County, and now the Department of Health has confirmed community spread. So this is a running total. The Department of Health website says they have 58 cases in South Dakota, 21 recovered. So what that means is of the 58, 21 of them are better. The rest are still ill. And that running total will keep going up, and pretty soon we'll get very bored watching it go up. But seems to be a focal point of people's attention today, just trying to figure out how bad it's going to get. The reality is South Dakota is one of the lowest, if not still the lowest, state for positive tests. South Dakota is also not the only state suffering from the rationing of testing materials. We've always believed that there will be more people with the COVID-19 than what is reflected on the Department of Health website, because the hospital systems are not able to test everyone. So as far as the city update goes, the city is working on a compliance and enforcement plan in anticipation of the City Council passing the emergency ordinance tonight. Compliance is certainly preferred, and we're not going to run the SWAT team out to some place that has not complied, but we will be taking this matter seriously and urging compliance, and then saving as an alternative traditional enforcement of the ordinance. Many city departments are attempting to dispel rumors from the public. This is not productive for us, and in most cases we will not devote time to fact-checking erroneous reports, especially from social media. As I mentioned in the last day or two, even the reports that are factual and come out from qualified sources, a couple days later are largely irrelevant because of the speed of progression in this disease. So take rumors for what they're worth. They're rumors, and not worthy of your emotional energy, not worthy of forwarding on social media. Employee stress is present, it's evident, and some signs of lowered morale and tensions in the workplace is also evident. So Rapid City will be working on mental health maintenance among its employees. And that is a valid point, I think, for anyone who employs human beings, that there's a great amount of stress they're bringing with them and taking home with them before and after their shift. So if we want to, as employers, keep them healthy and working, we should be focusing on the mental health aspect as well. The ambulance calls that I spoke about yesterday, they are in fact trending downward. We will keep you posted on that development and any changes to it. This is a very crude analysis of the ambulance calls for service for the past few weeks, but also comparing to last year. Our critical services workforce is healthy, and operations are in full swing. And this includes public safety, water, sewer, and garbage. Those are our #1 priorities for city services, and they will continue throughout the course of the pandemic. Pactola Dam releases are being increased to offset the additional moisture that has been occurring in that Pactola watershed. And so Rapid Creek is rising. And we have some very unofficial ways of determining when some caution should be used, and that's when bike paths are being covered by the water. But there is also a very good system of measuring the cubic feet per second going down Rapid Creek. And more specific warnings will come from the Public Works Department as appropriate. The County Care Campus is open and in full operation, but there is a litany of enhanced sanitation procedures that have been put in place there as well. Rapid City Public Library has imposed a 5-day quarantine on returned library materials. So this is for everyone's safety so that we don't become a point of transmission for the public. The drive-through window at the library has become very popular, obviously and thankfully, but we're quarantining those books to make sure that we don't pass something on to you and your family. So this may cause a delay in availability, but the best way to deal with that is to do an online search for materials and put a hold on the materials you want to come down and check out. If the book or video or the piece of media is quarantined, you won't be able to place a hold on it. So just ask your patience with that. Keep coming down, checking out those materials in the drive-thru. Beginning April 1st, City Hall will impose a mail quarantine of 24 hours. Means we're going to get mail in here and throw it in a box for 24 hours before we even look at it. So this will slow the physical mail communication by a day. I'm talking U.S. mail, not men. It'll slow the U.S. mail communication by a day. But no customer late fees will be incurred due to this. And there are some special arrangements that need to be made for things like bid openings and other deadlines relating to public works or community planning projects. And so we will have a new system up at any moment to deal with those in the foreseeable future. So our marketing efforts will take off in the next day or two. We have a marketing group put together. We're going to start. We'll have billboards, radio, TV, a variety of digital media, but we will need to put out the message that that this is real and that there are simple precautions that could be taken. And by the way, the pandemic, the flu pandemic 1918, just learned this today from one of our department heads. the same social distancing standards were put in place for that. So there's a lot of talk about this time being unprecedented, but it is really not. Our country and our globe has been through pandemics before. We are, however, able to communicate better today. We're able to network better. We have greater capacity in the scientific community, in the medical community, to predict and treat. So we're in much better shape today than we were in 1918, obviously. So we'll open it up for questions, but I'm going to tell you right now, one of the thing I want you to practice for today, if you're at home, just practice this. I'm going to ask you to do the 5. Do the 5. Hands, elbow, face, space, and home. So with your hands, wash your hands. Wash your hands when you get home. Wash your hands while you're out if there's a place to do it with. Use some sanitizer if there isn't, but make a habit of washing those hands. And for your elbow, cough or sneeze into it. It's a very effective way to keep from spraying a contagion out into the open air. And as far as your face, try not to touch it. This is a lifelong habit. If you have an itch, you scratch it. If you move the hair out of your face, you do it, except in my case, there's no need. But for your face, you try not to touch it. I'm very thankful to the social media crowd who watches these type of things and who will alert us that we've been touching our face while we've been telling you not to touch your face. Well, it's a hard habit to break, and we need to work on it together. And also space. The space, the social distancing of keeping 6 feet between human beings. It's very important. It's not hard to do. It's not hard to do. It's becoming habit around here in City Hall. And you'll notice when someone takes a step away from you, it's a good reminder that you're invading that 6-foot barrier. It can be very effective. I think of all the things we're throwing at the public, keeping 6 feet of space is going to be the easiest to learn. And the reason for that is not that you can't reach out and touch someone 6 feet away. You could extend your arms and touch. It's to keep those contagions from becoming airborne when you cough or sneeze, and in most cases, nearly all the cases, the contagion will become airborne and fall before it reaches 6 feet. That's how someone chose 6 feet. It wasn't just a random selection. And the last of the 5, home. If you can, stay home. Don't go on a recreational shopping trip. Don't go browsing at some large store to see how things are doing. Make your trips intentional. You stay home. Enjoy the outdoors. Luckily, spring is on the way. Take the walk, go to the hills, get a walking trail, and so on. Okay? So, hands, elbow, face, space, home. So, let's open up for questions.
Mr. Mayor, talk a little bit about, again, the protocols for tonight's City Council meeting for those folks who may have not tuned into these over the past few days.
Good question. We have in the council chambers upwards of 20 seats right now. They are all spaced 6 feet apart from one another. We have tape on the floor to indicate where the seat should be placed in the room. And we're not going to allow grouping up in this room. So for the City Council meeting tonight, it's a public meeting. The public is welcome. We're just asking the public to really be certain you need to make a physical presence down here. We've offered up an email address for you to send public comments that will be read at the meeting. So far we have about 80 of those public comments. And we're going to sit through and listen to every one of them. And so for tonight, let's say 20 people occupy this room. When someone is done speaking, I'll ask them, not order them, to give up their seat and let someone who may be waiting downstairs to come up and take it. We need to try to be orderly here. We're not trying to squash public comment. This is a public health crisis, so it just makes sense that we practice what we preach here. So it'll be a very unusual City Council meeting tonight, where the meeting time will be dominated by public comment. we'll have a vote on 2 items of interest. One is the emergency ordinance for the second reading, and we'll have another ordinance, which is the first reading of an ordinance amending the emergency ordinance. That will put into that ordinance the ability for the City Council to change the ordinance in the future by resolution rather than 2 readings of an ordinance. It will allow the city to become more flexible in as much as maybe we determine that we have the wrong businesses identified in the ordinance, or that we need to add one, or we need to change some type of direction in that ordinance. So those are the things of interest tonight. Other questions?
Also, when we discussed yesterday, the letter that sent to the State Department of Health with those 10 specific questions that you were asking the city, Rapid City needs to know. Have you received a response formally from that letter?
Okay, I forgot to repeat the last question. This question was, did Rapid City receive an answer from the Department of Health on the letter with 10 questions we sent? And the answer to that is yes and no. We've not received a written response that I'm aware of. However, as quickly as this situation is changing, I believe some or many of those questions have been answered in the routine communications coming out of Department of Health and the Governor's office. So that's good news. So I think we'll have the remainder of our answers very shortly. Any other questions? Yes?
Are any council members planning on calling in remotely tonight?
The question is, are any council members planning on calling in remotely? So far, I know of one council member that is planning on calling into the meeting, and it is because of a personal situation that is not related to COVID-19. So we will have that, and that I'm worried about forgetting this person, forgetting to remember that they're on the line, but we'll get through it. So one so far.
What kind of considerations does, I guess, the city toss around about potentially helping out some of these small businesses that will have to close or are opting to close, many of them with, as you know, very small margins?
Right. The city of Rapid City will not be helping with taxpayer dollars any small business or anyone else that is affected by the COVID-19 response. Our ability to fund our own essential operations could come into question later in the year, depending on how this works. But there are, for rent assistance, contacts can be made at Pennington County Health and Human Services, but also through the small business loan, emergency loan program. And Elevate Rapid City has a lot of those resources for small businesses. And also, perhaps the most important page on Facebook for this period of time is the Rapid City To Go Facebook page that appears to me to be all businesses that are being affected by this and how they're trying to work together and stay afloat as best they can.
And you also mentioned that you believe there are a lot more cases out there. We just simply don't have the testing equipment to do it. Are you in any kind of communication with Monument Health or other physicians or people who are essentially saying the same thing?
Absolutely. It's been acknowledged as a global shortage on testing supplies. Rapid City is no different. There was a report from a local doctor that there were tens of thousands of test kits available, and we can't really find that same information. So they are rationing the tests. Certainly, if there were 330 million tests to test every man, woman, and child in the country, we would certainly need to make that test available to them several times throughout the next few months, because that is a point-in-time evaluation. The frustrating part for many is that they become ill with symptoms that are similar to COVID-19. They want to test, but instead they're told, go home and self-isolate and call us if you have any of these symptoms. If this happens, if that happens. Some people who believe they have become in contact with someone who tested COVID-19 want to be tested immediately. And I believe that would be a waste of that test kit when that person is not showing any signs or symptoms. This is not a disease where 100% of the people who come in contact with a carrier will become ill. So I think the medical community is smartly rationing those. I think it's unfortunate that we're learning now in real time how quickly these things become scarce, but I'm afraid that's the situation we're in.
Plan on having a call press conference tomorrow or this weekend?
Oh, this weekend, today at 10 minutes until 2 p.m., we don't see a need at this time to have a press conference Saturday or Sunday, so we'll schedule back at 1:30 p.m. on Monday. If something happens that needs to be addressed publicly, the city will send out a press release and alert everyone of a press conference or some other type of official communication. But we're going to try to stay home this weekend and monitor from there.
Does that include like Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, things like that?
Those things, yeah, we're not planning on doing anything with those at the moment, but I mean, it could literally change in a minute's notice throughout the weekend, and I'd certainly be willing to do that type of thing from the house if I need to. All right, well, thanks for being here, everyone, and for the public, remember, do the 5, hands, elbow, face, space, and home. We'll see you next week.